everyone, and welcome to Talent Connect 2022. Today, we will be discussing the topic of leverage or liability, transforming data chaos into data excellence. And we'll have a fireside chat discussing how Waterstone Mortgage took baby steps to establish data excellence. I am your host, Danielle Sachs. I'm a senior solution engineer at Talend in the Fed/SLED space. But before I joined Talon, I was a two-time Talon customer at both Kaiser Permanente and Summit Materials. I'm excited to be joined for this session by Julia Fryk. Julia is a data engineer and architect at Waterstone Mortgage. We are also thrilled that Julia is the host of the Wisconsin Talend user group. In this session, we will first discuss how to turn data chaos into data excellence. After that, we will pick the brain of Julia during our fireside chat. Finally, we will finish this session with a demo of how to use Talon to achieve your data excellence goals. So let's jump into it. Despite all the value data provides, it can be hard to manage. On one hand, data is an asset. It provides tremendous value to all types of businesses. When data is modernized with cloud migration, it can help reduce an organization's total cost of IT ownership. It is easier for companies to scale up or down based on their data volumes or usage. And data modernization can drive digital transformation initiatives. Additionally, when operational data is accelerated, organizations can provide more self-service access to users or data consumers. They can be more agile because of increased access. They can better share data with stakeholders, employees, customers, and partners. And when a business uses data to enable analytics, it can drive better insights for all departments. It can lead better decision-making, especially around critical initiatives. And it can improve productivity because insights are fresh and accurate. These are all the tremendous benefits of data. But if not managed well, data can wreak havoc and be a liability for business. Just take a look at some of these recent headlines. Data breaches and privacy issues happen every day. From Humana to Revolt, in every part of the world and in every industry, it is critical to make sure data is protected and well managed. Global trends complicate it even further. Data volumes are exploding. Companies are drawing from more than 400 data sources on average. Data demands are increasing, and 80% of companies provide more access to data than necessary. Laws and regulations are becoming more stringent. There has been a 7 times increase in GDPR fines. And data environments are constantly changing. 76% of companies are already multi-cloud, making their data environments very complex. It may seem like a huge feat, but it can be done. What you really need is to balance control, compliance, and access to quality data. You need to provide the right people access to data to drive business outcomes and objectives. You need to ensure that access to quality data is controlled and ensure users have a high degree of confidence in your data. And at the same time, you need to ensure a high degree of compliance with an increasing number of data regulations that can change. All this needs to happen in a way that is automated, scalable, and sustainable. So how can you establish data excellence? How can you achieve that balance? There are 3 things organizations need to do. 1, they need to deliver trusted data across the organization, ensuring that the data is consistent, accurate, and of high quality so that their people have confidence in it. 2, they need to set and enforce internal data policies around self-service data access, management, and data usage. 3, they need to ensure compliance with external regulations like GDPR and CCPAs. Laws and regulations are always evolving, and ensuring your data and practices are meeting those standards is critical. So how can you establish data excellence? First, you need data quality capabilities to discover your data with semantic profiling and Talend's trust score. You also need masking and obfuscation to protect sensitive data, and business and quality rules to ensure your data is validated in the context of your business. Then, reference and master data management help you classify and curate data so that agreed upon information can be shared across your organization. Of course, stewardship activities will have an important role to play in establishing data excellence throughout your entire initiative. Lastly, you need to catalog and document data assets. Creating a business glossary to bridge your gap between technical metadata and business terminology will help build data literacy in your organization. Data lineage will provide critical insights in determining data origin and flow. Policies and workflows are an important piece in managing data privacy and data access challenges. So let's pivot to a real-world example. Meet Waterstone Mortgage. Waterstone Mortgage is a lending company that started in 2000 with assets of almost $2 billion. They are in a heavily regulated industry because of the type of financial data that they have. Additionally, Julia is working with a very small team, making her challenges even greater. So, Julia, it is great to be here with you today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you tell me, what were your top business and technical challenges?
Absolutely. I think your presentation, really speaks to where Waterstone was when I first joined us. We were in data chaos. We were a small team, as you mentioned, and our entire solution was on-prem. So we had, a SQL server that we were challenged with restarting frequently, a lot of infrastructure maintenance, and a tabular system. So we were not in a place where we could really take on a lot. And we also had information that was coming into us from multiple different systems. So we really had limited time for building and preparing and securing our data. And as you also mentioned, the amount of data growth was really large. With each new project, we had new data assets. So we really needed to look for a cloud solution that was going to eliminate a lot of the maintenance and the infrastructure that we were dealing with, so that we could take on new data assets and really manage what we had in front of us to make quality decisions. And we found that speed and scalability when we moved to the Talend cloud solution along with Snowflake.
Wonderful. So I love to hear that you were able to integrate so many different data silos using Talend into, a single source of truth, if you will.
Yes.
So I know that a lot of us deal with this question frequently, but how did you get buy-in from stakeholders to invest in your data excellence initiatives?
Absolutely. I often call what we did a cloud continuum. Our journey was small baby steps to get there. We didn't start out with the idea that we were going to have a multi-cloud solution and that we were going to even have data governance or a strategy or anything like that. It was, let's get to a place where we can manage all of our data assets and use them to make decisions. And so we literally just started with the combination of Talon and Snowflake. And once we got that incorporated, we had this time to actually take a step back and get insights into what action items we needed to achieve data excellence. And so at that point, we found we needed data governance. We needed to put a team together, and we were able to present to our executive team and say, look what we've done with just these two things, moving into this cloud product combination. Now let's look at the next step. Let's take on data governance.
That's excellent. So you had kind of a hypothesis, and then you backed it up with data to present to your stakeholders in order to be like, hey, what we're doing is great.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it made it very convincing to the executive team to say, we've achieved this already coming from this chaotic place. Now we're ready for the next step. And we know from what we've experienced that we can, make bigger impact with more action items.
Wonderful. So how did you approach data quality, and how did you instill confidence in your business users that your data is trustworthy?
Yeah, this was really the second step in our continuum to the cloud. And it was really, we had that weight lifted of our on-prem solution, and we found right away that we had data silos. We had a lack of transparency. We had individuals that were coming into rooms and saying that, the data's wrong because their solution or their data set said that, we had 30 funded loans for this branch at this point in time. And somebody else said, well, no, from my department, we have 28 funded loans for this time period for this department. And so it was really discovering that people were thinking of the word funded in a different way. And that really drove us to understand that we needed data governance. We needed to start having weekly meetings and having people have discussions of definitions and lineage and to certify data sets. At the end of the day, it's really their data, and we were just there to provide the tools and the data sets so that they can make the quality decisions. But we really needed to open up and show everybody that what they were making the decisions upon was accurate data, was quality data. We just needed to speak about it in the right way.
It's great news to hear that you were able to establish a data governance team. I can't tell you how many meetings I have been in with data engineers and business people, and people are arguing what data rules should be, or there isn't a defined definition for the terminology, and it can be really frustrating. So I love that you were able to get those governance meetings on a weekly basis, in fact. What specific internal policies have you set to control data access?
Now, we have a lot of sensitive data, and we also have the need to really localize our control for what people are seeing. We're at the point where we really divide our data up three ways. We do it at the loan origination level, at the branch level, and at the executive level. And at the loan origination level, the goal is that so people can kind of see their KPIs, see where they are standing in meeting their goals, but not so much that they're going to see everybody else and where they're standing and what goals they're achieving. So at the broad level, we allow both the loan originators and the branch level to see generally where they stand amongst their groups or their peers, but really only to dive into the information that they need to know. And then at the executive level, obviously, they need to be able to see the bigger picture and make financial decisions.
Gotcha. I heard you're talking about protecting sensitive data, making sure that only the right people have access to it. When I worked at Kaiser Permanente, we also had sensitive information for our customers' healthcare information, and it can be a really big struggle. It can be messy, it can be dangerous. How does Talon help you protect sensitive data, and what specific capabilities are you using?
Sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, we had very similar sensitive data, a lot of PII, like social security number, home addresses, a lot of financial data. So for us, it's really evaluating that data and what we're going to do with it on a case-by-case basis. Some data is evaluated and we determine that it's needed to be masked, things like financial decisions. So we're going to bring it in, but we know that we don't want everybody to see it. We need to make sure that it's safe. But we also know that we might eventually use it to make some decisions and make sure that our investments, our ROI, that's all where we want it to be. Then there's other things like social security number, salary information for our employees. Those types of things we don't need in an analytical environment. So we really omit them in the replication process to make sure that we're minimizing any risk. And I know it sounds simple, but it really is, because when I think back to, the days of having an on-prem solution and having to develop all that code just to encrypt data, in transit at rest, and the amount of time that took, that savings has been huge for us.
Wow, it's excellent. It's music to my ears to hear that it was simple, because you don't want to be the person who results in your company getting fined for privacy leaks or misuse of data. So to me, hearing that it was so easy is like, wow, we've really come a long way in terms of being able to ensure data, not only quality, but the management of sensitive info.
Yes.
So what is next for you in your data excellence journey?
Sure. Like I said, for us, it's a continuum, and we're definitely, we're moving up that path right now. We are going to still really strongly focus on our data governance and getting certified data sets so that individuals can come in and really do self-service. We want things to get to people faster. We need to make faster decisions. We need to deal with a lot of competition that's occurring in our market right now. But the other portion that is very strong and near and dear to my heart is data strategy. And right now, what our focus is to really start using Talon even more for integrations. We have so many areas in which we have data at Waterstone, whether it be our CRM, our loan origination system. ServiceNow manages workflows for us. And then we have the other side of the fence, which is tough to talk about, where we have a lot of data in Excel spreadsheets. So what our hope really is right now is to take Talent and really start integrating it and make sure that we're having that information similar or the same across every application. It sounds crazy, but we have just even one example is a name issue where our loan origination system might have John Smith, our HR system might have John S. Smith, and then another system for websites might have Jonathan Smith. And so we have a hierarchy just to determine an individual's preferred name. And so we really are hoping, instead of number one, having individuals manually enter that information across all systems, but number two, we can have a marketing name, we can have an HR name, but when we start to talk about preferred name, that be similar across all of our systems.
Wow. It really gives me the chills to think about using Excel as a database. It's just, it's too scary that people are still doing that.
Exactly. I know. We always wish we could actually just kind of take that as an uninstall on the work desktops, because we found like even ServiceNow is going to be a big part with Talent and the integrations that are within that component, so that we can take things like regions, which is how we make decisions, or program codes, which is how we can break down loans, and take those things and put them in Snowflake using Talent.
Wow, that's awesome. Julia, I want to thank you so much for talking with me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Now that you've heard how Waterstone Mortgage has had success, let's get into a demo of core capabilities that allow customers to establish data excellence. In this demo, we will illustrate how an organization establishes data excellence to support its global compliance and data trust requirements. To do so, we will illustrate how different people within the company, each with their own skill sets and limitations, can work collaboratively to achieve company objectives and data excellence. The first step to achieve data excellence in an organization is for the data team to be able to discover and deliver trusted data. Let's take a look at Talon Data Inventory. This is our single pane of glass for the entire organization. With data inventory, all teams have visibility to the data sets available across the organization. This is the Talend Trust Score. Talend is leading the way in assessing data health across organizations, and the Talend Trust Score is the first indicator, providing a comprehensive assessment of each data set in the data inventory based on 5 key dimensions: completeness, discoverability, usage, validity, and popularity. Let's take a look at the financial customers data set representing the application subscribers. Data inventory promotes data literacy by providing a wealth of information on the data set. Data quality indicators and other metadata, such as tags, ratings, and attributes, can be added to foster collaboration and searchability. We can add tags informing about the sensitivity of the data and monitor the collaborators who have access to this data set. Let's click on the sample icon. In this view, I can assess the sample of the data and instantly see discrepancies with invalid and valid values. Talon also provides semantic awareness by using automation to discover each field's data type, then associating that type with the elements, establishing a clear picture of the business nature of the data. Here, the tax identifier column is detecting multiple semantic types that we previously created. Emails, countries, and phone numbers are also detected and validated using semantic types. As a data owner, I know that the tax identifier varies depending on the country of residence. In order to help data engineers from the engineering team format the data accordingly, I'll leave a description on this column to let them know about the tax identifier. To help with tax identifier conformity, I, the data owner, will add data quality rules. Data quality rules allow data professionals to configure meaningful business context and can be created via a simple self-service workflow. Once a rule is added to the library, it can be leveraged in different places across the Talon platform, allowing teams to optimize productivity and scale data quality across their organizations. Here, the data owner is creating rules to check the conformity of the tax identifier based on the customer's country of residence. This helps us send notifications to customers if they've moved so that they can update their information accordingly, or to use as a potential fraud or risk flag. At this point, the data owner has discovered and documented the dataset. It's now time to validate and protect the data. First, we will create a stewardship campaign which will provide the right framework to manually review non-conforming customer records. Entering Talend Data Stewardship as a data owner, let's create a stewardship campaign. A campaign is the main unit of work in data stewardship. It contains all the required configuration settings that are determined by the campaign owner. In Talon Data Stewardship, there are 4 types of campaigns: arbitration, resolution, grouping, and merging. We will define this campaign as a resolution campaign and specify the stewards who will be tasked with resolving any issues with the data. To enhance data security and protect critical data elements, Talon Data Stewardship allows the campaign owner to define what data elements the stewards can and should have access to in order to successfully resolve data issues. As the campaign owner finalizes this stewardship campaign, they will define a workflow process, which is a system of checks and balances providing assurance that data errors are captured and corrected before affecting downstream systems. In this case, once the stewards have finished resolving their assigned data issues, a compliance manager will need to validate the tasks before marking them as resolved. The data engineering team will now take over and do 2 things. First, the data needs to be replicated to a data warehouse where the analytics team will create dashboards and reports. The second need is to incorporate our review process, which we created in our data stewardship campaign. This helps ensure internal data policies are being followed. Thanks to the tight integration between Talon Studio and Talon Data Inventory, this data engineer leverages components to retrieve the financial customer's dataset defined in Data Inventory. This demonstrates the ease of collaboration between the whole data team. Then the data quality rules component is used to filter the records based on their compliance with the rules. The sensitive data elements are then masked using a dedicated masking component. The data masking component offers a broad range of masking, hashing, and obfuscation algorithms. The non-conforming data is sent to Talon Data Stewardship campaign to be reviewed by the compliance team. Let's go back to the Talon Data Stewardship application as a data steward. Data has started to enter the system, and the data steward can begin resolving the data quality tasks assigned to them. This data steward is using functions consistent across the entire Talon platform to cleanse, standardize, and validate non-compliant records before they can violate any privacy laws, such as GDPR, CCPA, and other regulations. Talon Data Stewardship aids this process by highlighting data errors and values that do not adhere to the data quality rules. At any time, the data steward can validate any records they have reviewed and thus send the records down the workflow. As a compliance manager, this individual has the responsibility of validating the work of the data stewards and assigns stewardship tasks to the individuals who are most familiar with the data. The manager can accept or reject records on an individual record basis. Rejected records get sent back to the steward for further review and remediation, while validated records continue down the workflow to be entered into target systems. We believe insight into data quality is imperative, and therefore we provide customizable dashboards within Talon Data Stewardship so campaign owners can get real-time insight into the status of a stewardship campaign. This ensures greater accuracy, accountability, and timely delivery of the latest data. We will now look at how a company can comply with GDPR laws for its European customers. To do so, they are implementing a data catalog and business workflows to govern their data. The primary goal is to know where the customer's personally identifiable information resides, both within their application landscape and across their geographic presences. To see these efforts in action, let's start by logging into Talon Data Catalog as a data engineer. Talon Data Catalog automatically harvests, captures, and catalogs changes and transformations from data sources and Talon jobs. Drilling down further reveals the relationship between all the fields within the data sources at the column level. This view provides data lineage and the ability to trade and understand how the data flows within the organization. Talon Data Catalog also provides a business glossary, which enables a company to define business terms, bind them to semantic types, and trace semantic lineage to discover where specific data reside. Let's look at a customer-related business terms, specifically the customer address term. Let's add a description to this business term. Here, the data engineer explains what the address means for the organization and what's considered part of an address. Once finished, I'll use Talon's data catalog's workflow capabilities and submit this term for approval. A data owner will then review and decide to publish the business term for enterprise-wide use. Let's look at the personally identifiable information term. We want to check the semantic lineage associated with the PII terms. This provides a way to detect sensitive data throughout the whole organization, which can be leveraged to mitigate risks and comply to regulatory requirements. Going to the semantic flow, we can see the presence of PII information, such as addresses, throughout the organization from the data store to the reports. Thanks to cross-functional workflows enabled by the Talon platform, we put the correct human eyes on non-conforming customer data, made the appropriate remediations, and used masking and obfuscation techniques to mitigate risk throughout the process. This is how organizations in an industry are able to establish data excellence with Talend by enforcing internal data policies, complying with external regulations, and delivering trusted data.